Hey everybody, welcome to the UGASports pregame show. Kind of a seat of our pants opening here for the national championship game. I'm joined by Blaine and Jed and Dash, and of course, if you want to drop your questions in there, we'll try to get to those. It's cold here in Indianapolis, but warm in the stadium. I guess 5.5 hours to go.
Oh yeah,
we'll kick this off. We're already here. We want to kind of. I'm going to say fill time, but I kind of need something to be distracted from just the anticipation of this game. It's going to be a very, very exciting game, and I'm just thrilled to death, but definitely want to talk to you guys about it. I'll start with you, Blaine. You've covered this team all year long. You know, everybody wants to know, is this the night that Georgia gets it done? And I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, this game is a 2.5. Vegas thinks that Georgia has more ways to win this game, I guess, is why the reason that they marked them as a favorite for the second time in a row. But it's just time to see if Georgia can mentally get over the hump of beating Alabama, right? The roster talent, 1 through 85, Coach Donnan has been adamant about this. Georgia's as good as anybody. It's just in certain skill positions can Georgia take advantage
the most
of
important
that.
Skill position.
The most important one. Jed, Dash, you guys are here in the stadium. What's been the vibe with you guys in Indianapolis as you've been getting ready for this game?
Well, I just took my oxygen mask off a couple minutes ago since we're so high up here in the press box. I don't know if you guys can see us up here or not.
I can't see that far.
We're about your 2 o'clock. Anyway, walking through here. I mean, you guys. I don't know if you guys went the same way or not, but you can walk. Through the Indiana Convention Center to get here. There's Fan Fest and all that kind of stuff going on. It feels like there's a lot more Georgia fans here. I mean, I don't know if you guys thought the same thing, but it kind of feels like it did in the Orange Bowl. Walking around, Miami the day of the game. Once we got there and couldn't get in the stadium because they wouldn't let us in at the time. It seemed like there was a lot more Michigan people there, and it looked like it was playing 60-40 Michigan people once it got in the stadium. I think it's going to be, similar, if not that. Tonight. Now, does that matter in the game? I mean, Georgia was 75-25 in Atlanta about a month ago, and we all saw how that went. So I don't know. That's the vibe I get just from a fan perspective, but obviously playing it's fans don't win games on the field, as we all know.
Yeah, I mean that's it's not the fans that can get pressure on Bryce Young. It's not the fans that can cover Jameson Williams. It's I like what our guys were talking about earlier. 1 through 85, just as fast. You got speed guys, you've got talent, but in the skill positions, they've got the best wide receiver. Now, George Pickens could be better, but he hadn't played all year. He's played very much. They got the better quarterback. They've got a running back who's a stud. It's you got to be worried about that. But at the same time, your best feature of your team is your defense.
Absolutely.
So who's can do it? And their defense has some questions. You put some points up on them, but then you also had 3 awful 3-and-outs. So to me, I see this game could go either way. People say, what's going to happen? I don't know if Georgia's going to win tonight, but they're going to win one of these. And here's the thing. We're going to be back in the same situation next year. Georgia's probably go 12-0 through the regular season. See Alabama or Texas A&M in the SEC championship game. You're going to see them. So the idea that it's one and done, it's your only chance, I think that's garbage. I think you're going to see them multiple times. And here, but you need to beat them because it's tomorrow's not promised. There's too many things that go wrong. Dash, you've been covering college football a long time. We can start, predicting what's going to happen next season, but you never know through injuries, transfer, stuff like that. Coaches get hired away, new coaches come in. But I will say, just about every move Kirby's made has got you better and better. Give me your thoughts, Dash. Dash.
No, Dash can't hear us.
Dash can't hear
I guess. Well, Dash
has got echo issues.
Yeah, I got you. Well, that's a shame because I wanted to hear Dash's
weird headsets.
I wanted to hear Dash's report from St. Elmo's, but I guess you were there with Dash last night, where Georgia fans actually get the police involved because of so much excitement coming around. So there's a lot of atmosphere around here in Indy of Georgia being very hopeful in this game at the fan base.
I mean, the fan base is absolutely packed. And everywhere we go, we drove up. We saw 2 cars from Alabama. We saw 50 from Georgia. Not to say that. I mean, it's just timing on the road. You just don't know how it's going to work out. We're in St. Elmo's. Mary Beth was in there apparently. So the big wigs got in, and thanks to 2 of our readers, Andrew and Andrew, who got us in, or we had never gotten a reservation, but so we were able to get in there. So shout out to them. But yeah, you had a guy get up in the middle of St. Elmo's, famous steakhouse, one of the most famous places in all of Indianapolis. You mentioned Indianapolis, people go try the shrimp cocktail at St. Elmo's. Well, yeah, because it's really good, it's world renowned, and this guy. It was there,
the whole
restaurant. And everyone kind of laughed and cut up, and then I guess they maybe if you go to the fan experience, you walk up and down the streets, you go to any of the restaurants in town, there's Georgia fans everywhere. They know how special this is. It was the same when they went out to the Rose Bowl, when they went to Miami, when they went to Colorado, Arizona State, South Bend, the takeovers. The fans are going to show up because this fan base is hungry for a championship. They packed Atlanta when you faced Alabama the first time. So maybe the Alabama fans are like, I'll just watch on TV. We'll win another title, But the Georgia fans are like, hell, I want to be there in this place. You got people selling kidneys, selling hearts,
all kinds of black market
plasma, whatever it takes to get up here. People hitchhiking, people carjacking, whatever it takes to get to Athens, they did it. I mean, to get to Indianapolis, they did it to get here. But again, you hate to see them be let down. And I'm kind of worried that you're going to have one more of those just second 26. Everything in quotes, 5 yards short. Tyler Simmons was offsides.
We got the replay phone ringing right now. If they were doing a replay this early here on the sideline, then that is in trouble. We're going to mute that, Jed, so you can go ahead and talk about. Just tell us kind of what the vibe you've gotten this weekend with Kirby Smart being there, in those press conferences and the players.
Yeah, I think they've talked a lot about basically not reading too much into the first game, but Kirby was like, hey, we played a really good team and they beat us. And, it's I think he said it was yesterday, because he mentioned yesterday that I thought was really interesting. He's been worried about, letdowns and complacency because every year it seems like Georgia has that game, right, where there's a letdown and, either a game is closer than it should be or a win turns into a loss. South Carolina a couple years ago, perfect example. And he said there wasn't one of those games this year, and SEC championship.
Not in the regular season.
Right. Well, the SEC championship, he said it wasn't a letdown so much as Alabama, won a lot of one-on-one matchups, obviously specifically on the outside. So that's what it comes down to. When, Nolan Smith on Evan Neal, one-on-one matchup. Jamison Williams on, Keely Ringo and Darian Kendrick, one-on-one matchup. So, that's what this game and a lot of football games honestly come down to is winning. You're not going to win them all, but the majority of those one-on-one matchups. And if you do that, you got a good shot.
Absolutely, and Roddy, if you had to point
Really?
to one reason
why
this one could be different, we've heard a lot of things like Georgia's defensive line might have been fatigued in the SEC championship game. There may have been maybe some sickness running through the team, stuff like that. There's excuses everywhere that can be pointed to and made. But what do you think if you point to if somebody gave you a crystal ball and said here's the score of this game, Georgia wins? Why would you point to the reason as to why they win this game?
The defense played like the defense has all year. And here's the thing. Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. A very famous line. But how often do you get to know what that's like and do it a second time? The rematches, things change. Now, Alabama may win another one. They got the Heisman Trophy guy. They've got a good defense. Their running game is a lot better than duplicate that, but he won't have to. He's got a running game this time. So you're able to go back, and a lot of things Georgia did in that game were based on speculation. Their offensive line is beat up. It's not as good an offensive line as before. They've got 2 talented wide receivers. We're going to be able to get a pass rush with 4 guys because their offensive line isn't as great as it was, and we're going to double team these receivers. We're going to bring in a guy, William Poole, who hasn't played star a whole lot. In other words, all your schematic planning, all your game plan stuff, you got to try it. It didn't work. And again, a lot of it was execution. So some of the scheme was sound in theory, just poor execution. But you're able to go back and look at your film and go, okay, what worked and what didn't. So that to me is you get a chance. Now here's another thing: Alabama gets the exact same situation. They're like, hey, here's what worked against Georgia, here's what didn't. So it's not like they're going to forget. So, but to me, if you at the end of the night and Georgia's a champion, you'll be able to say, hey, we looked at game film, we corrected our mistakes and came back.
Jed, one thing that'll have to do with getting that pressure is probably the health of Emil Ekiyor and Chris Owens, the right guard and right tackle for Alabama. You've sat in all these press conferences and things like that. Has there been any indication of how those guys are progressing throughout this week?
Yeah, it was funny. Saban got asked specifically about Ekiyor. Like the first part of the question was about him, and the second part of the question was about how the offensive line has progressed throughout the year or something. He just answered the second part and didn't even touch on the health of Ekiyor there. So, it's I don't know. It seems like it's a national championship game. You leave it all out there and play. Obviously, these teams will be out here for warm-ups in probably about 3.5, 4 hours, and I've got my trusty binoculars here, so I will be looking from up here and see who's dressed out, who's not, who's reps, all that kind of stuff. I personally would expect them to at least try to go, but there's the thing too of if they play, they might not be 100%, so that could affect things as well. So exactly. So in short, we'll see. We'll see when these teams get out here for warm-ups and see how they look, how much they're repping, what unit they're repping with, and we'll go from there.
I'll give you what one of our Bama insiders told us about some of the guys that are in question. Of course, John Mechie's out, Jason McCallum's out, Roy Dale Williams, Kamar Wheaton, Chris Allen, Josh Jobe. Those were all out for the playoffs. We knew that going into it. But now, after the Cotton Bowl, this is where it gets interesting. Jalen Armour-Davis, questionable because of the hip. He left the Cotton Bowl. Don't really have an update on him. Ekiyor, you said, got separated his shoulder. Saban said, he has a chance to come back and play. I mean, maybe. Jordan Battle has an ankle issue, but he's going to be fine, and Chris Owens will be fine. So that's a relatively healthy team. Again, being without Mechie is tough.
Yeah.
And Georgia's healthy. I mean, you got most of your receivers are back. Maybe we see Don Blaylock. Kears Jackson was healthy.
Georgia's as healthy as they've been all year going into this. Georgia has dealt with significantly more injuries. Dash, can you hear us now? You good?
I think I can hear you now. I don't hear like five of you talking at the same time, so I think I'm okay.
Yeah, well, Dash, we were just talking about the health of this Georgia team right now. Arguably the healthiest Georgia's been in any game this year going into this one. I mean, they're getting Chris Smith on the mend. I mean, a lot of health on this Georgia side. No
doubt. I mean, except for the guys who we already knew were out for the year, this is the healthiest Georgia has been this year, and that's I include guys like George Pickens and that. I mean, George is has been playing for about 6-7 weeks now, but he now is as healthy as he can possibly be for this game. Not saying he's 100%, but even an 80-85% George Pickens in a one-on-one situation, I think is an option that Stetson Bennett will try to take advantage of tonight.
Yeah, I think when you talk about, Josh Jobe has had the foot surgery, is out for the year. Jalen Armour-Davis having a hip issue. That's your second corner already over there. And if he's banged up, then you have to go. They would be starting two young players, two freshmen at corner with Kool-Aid, and then I believe Kamir Jackson is the other backup behind Jalen Armour-Davis, giving George Pickens and Jermaine Burton a chance down the field. I think that's something Georgia has to just roll the dice on and say, hey, we're going to trust our guy to go up and get it over theirs 4 or 5 times tonight, because those safeties and linebackers in the middle of the field are going to be preoccupied with Brock Bowers. So you're going to get a lot of one-on-one matchups on the outside. I just think that's something that Georgia's going to have to take the chance on tonight and take it down the field.
And to me, if I'm Alabama, I'm like, sure, we're going to let our guys go one-on-one with them, because you're going to have to make a great throw. You're going up against a quarterback who's had some accuracy issues. Now, he's been pretty good throwing over 20 yards. He has I know we've seen some ugly passes deep, but a lot of quarterbacks have ugly passes deep, and he's actually hit on a ton of those. He's got a lot of long scoring passes. But to me, you throw those anyway. Hopefully you get the run game started, so you're looking at a 2nd and 4. Short. Now they kind of know it's passing down. You know you can take a shot, but at least you won't be behind the sticks on 3rd down. You take that shot, you back them out. And worst case scenario, you got James Cook in it, and everyone's backed out. You hit him on the slants. You got throw to Darnell Washington. I think if Darnell Washington gets 4 or 5 targets in this game, it really starts messing with their defensive scheme because they know you're going to go to Brock Bowers. And I'm not saying take anything away from Brock, but they know you want to go to George. They know Ladd McConkey's out there. But if you all of a sudden say, look, when we go to that 3 tight end set, that you can run behind, that 3 tight end weave, and you're not sure which one of those guys is going to get the ball, that makes things a little interesting there to me. So I'm like, hey, you've got great coaches at Alabama. And I want to people. We can talk player personnel all the time, but when you look at their offensive and defensive coordinators, those guys they're geniuses. They're phenomenal. They got
former NFL head coaches.
That's my point. So this to them, they're going to be able to scheme and cover up those freshman cornerbacks, and they understand the percentages just like Kirby does. So my point is, I could see them saying, okay, we can do this, but all that, establish the run, make the passing game, help your run game, keep Bryce Young off the field.
And Dash, you've been covering obviously this Georgia team day in and day out, and you've covered the entire career of James Cook. It seems like he's playing the best football of his career right now with that kind of huge game he had against Michigan. He's done good things against Alabama before. Do you anticipate him to be utilized heavily tonight?
No question about it. I mean, James is such a good story too. Just I don't think it's really talked about enough. Here's a guy, this time, last year, he lost his father, he passed away, and a lot of folks were saying, hey, this guy's going to transfer. He's going to go in the portal. He's going to go somewhere else. But he came back for this year with the intent on, helping Georgia, win a championship. And yeah, James Cook to me is Georgia's most, dangerous player in space. And, you're talking about, Stetson Bennett taking some deep shots. You can take a deep shot with James Cook too on a wheel route. I suspect you'll see him, make some attempts, along those lines. But James Cook, no question in my mind, is if I had to pick a running back who's going to have the biggest impact in this game tonight, it's going to be James Cook.
Absolutely. Guys, we have a few more, minutes here on the show and things like that. If you got any questions on the YouTube channel, go ahead and submit those for us. We'll try to get those answered to the best of our ability. Again, thank everybody for supporting us all year on the YouTube channel. The numbers of subscribers have grown tremendously, and guess what? It's free. So hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Go ahead and do that for us. Like this video, all that kind of stuff. We really appreciate all the support at UGA Sports. Make sure if you're not a member of UGA Sports, you probably want to do that, especially.
You want to be on the board tonight.
Yeah, you want to be on the vent tonight. It's going to be legendary and epic one way or another. I promise you on how that goes. So it'll be interesting to see. We've got a comment here that I'll throw up here. Just to note, Kenny Mack averaged 8 yards per carry against Alabama in the SEC championship game. Don't be surprised to see 6 show out. Now, I was talking to legendary Georgia Bulldog Verron Haynes earlier today, and I asked him his thoughts on the game. Like, what are you thinking? And he said, I think the guy who could be the biggest difference in the game is Kenny McIntosh, because he brings a little bit of Zamir White and a little bit of James Cook all in one package, and he pointed to that success that Kenny has had. People, I think it's an embarrassment of riches in that backfield. Jed, I mean, we cover recruiting all the time. People kind of forget that Kenny McIntosh, 4-star recruit, highly coveted by a lot of schools, and sometimes he just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But that's almost a good problem for Georgia to have. They have so many weapons, but Kenny McIntosh could be a big player tonight.
Yeah, and he's, when there's so many highly touted guys in this backfield, I remember Kenny McIntosh came in and kind of got lost in the shuffle, and then he had a run. It was his freshman year, I think, and he got in late in the game, and he broke a guy's ankles, busted a long run, and then the opposing defender pulled a hamstring trying to chase him down about the 20-yard line, and everyone was like, "Oh, who is this guy?" And he's still, he's that guy that flies under the radar, and he comes in and he's usually effective, when he comes in. So it's those kind of guys, the Kenny McIntoshes, the Darnell Washingtons. Guys like that, the guys that maybe aren't the first names you think about. But those are the guys that make a difference in games like this. Devante Smith 4 years ago was a skinny freshman who no one had really heard of, and he catches, a touchdown pass that lives on forever. So it's guys like that on on both sides really that end up playing a difference in games like this.
Go back to DeAndre Swift in that 2017 SEC championship game. You know, you've got two guys ahead of you that are going to go play in the NFL, but he takes off and just breaks Palmer's back with the long run that he had.
Speaking of pulling a hammy, Kirby might have done that on the sideline, chasing after him down on that play. That was
But you know, you also have Kendall Milton's back healthy. But I know a lot of people get kind of frustrated, like, "Hey, bring in those young guys, let them do it." But to me, Zamir White's had success against this team.
Yeah.
He's just a bruising back. And you also need him in there because don't forget Will Anderson's lining up across from you.
absolutely.
You know, Dallas is over there. You need somebody who's going to keep your quarterback upright.
Absolutely.
You know? And remember, all he's heard about was the fact that he was wasn't a huge factor in that first game. He's going to come out and try to make an example of Warren McClendon or
Well, it's his,
Sawyer.
it's
a big game. The big guys show out.
yeah, he felt disrespected by, Aiden Hutchinson getting selected to go to New York and not him, all that. Dash, we got a question here. It says, I want to know what you think Alabama is going to do wrong. There's always negative talk of Georgia. How about what Alabama needs to look out for? That's from AA.
People talk about Georgia needing to run the ball to be effective. I think Alabama needs to run the ball to be effective. I mean, granted, last time they played, Bryce Young was able to do a lot of things by himself. But I just think with the adjustment I expect Georgia to make, Alabama will need to, get Mr. Robinson kind of cranking a little bit to maybe keep Georgia's defensive front, off of Bryce. I mean, if that doesn't happen, I mean, Georgia's, linemen can start, and linebackers can begin to pin their ears back and come after, and that's going to make a big difference.
How many turnovers did Alabama have in that first match?
I don't think they forced any.
Zero.
Georgia didn't force any.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Give Georgia the same advantage of 3, and they had one on the ground. That Georgia could have scooped up. Give Georgia a couple of extras. Give Georgia a fumble recovery, something like that. Change the field position. Change the number of drives you get. And again, I always say this: the coaches look at it not play by play, person by person. They look at it by my drive versus your drive. Okay. Every time you talk to any coach midway through the game, and they'll say, "Well, because you see them when they walk off. They've had 4 drives and they got a touchdown and a field goal out of it. We had 5 drives and we got 2 field goals. We're getting killed." You're like, "Well, it's a 4-point game." They're like, "No, you don't understand. We've had an extra drive and we have less points."
Yeah.
So to them, it's all about penetration into the other guy's end zone. See how far you can get down the field. See if you can flip the field. To me, that's one of the things. If you can get them to turn over a few times, completely changes the outlook of this game.
And Jed, going back to recruiting again, Seth McLaughlin for the center for Alabama, he was from Buford High School, 3-star recruit, not somebody that everybody was just falling all over themselves for. He had the game of his life in the SEC championship game. I think that you're going to see guys like people talk about the rat poison and stuff like that. Jed, y'all have heard about it in the press conferences one way or another. I think Jordan Davis and Devante Wyatt and Trevon Walker are all going to
Smith got bottled up.
Be motivated to have a better performance this time around.
Yeah, I mean, these guys, they say it every week, but it's like, oh, it's another game, and we don't use this motivation. Like, I don't know. I think you have to use it as motive. Or no, you don't have to, but I think that you don't have a choice in your mind but to say, okay, we just played this team a month ago, and I mean, embarrassed might be a little too strong, but the defense, I mean, we all the talk of generational this and elite that, and they got punked in the middle part of that game, honestly. And so I think I think against Michigan, I mean, Alabama had 300 yards of offense in the second quarter. That's insane. That's hard. I don't do that in Madden, and not that I'm good at Madden, but it doesn't matter. But I think, like you said, Nolan Smith and Robert Peel will say, hey, we got no sacks. We need to step it up. Jordan Davis, Devante Wyatt, those guys have been here a long time, and this is what you point to. So I think all those guys are going to be so motivated. I think defense, especially too, when the motivation and juice helps you on defense, maybe more than it does on offense, flying around at the ball and everything. So, which I'm rambling here, but you have to play with that fire and intensity, but also not commit those dreaded eye violations that Kirby talks about. Right? You got to keep that same juice, but not, get out of your assignment and, maintain your gaps, all that kind of, X's and O's stuff.
Well, I mean, Alabama picked up all your stunts and twists, and they, any loops they ran, Alabama picked them up, all the twists, they got them. They handed them off. They climbed to the second level. It was, for a team that supposedly didn't have a good offensive line, they played out of their mind. And a lot of that was also, as you point out, scheme. It's like, hey, control your gaps. You don't have to come in. We're not going right at the quarterback. We're going to keep him bottled up because we got everybody covered.
Yeah.
You know, and we're just going to make it so that we can. You could do some stuff on defense when you thought everybody was going to be covered. They weren't covered, and you didn't get to them because of your delays and stuff like that. I expect them to throw the kitchen sink at it. And here's the thing. You're going to have to take some risks, and Alabama's going to hit on some big plays because you're going to be a little more aggressive. But you can do the same thing.
Dash, the field area is starting to get a little more busy around here. We're about to wrap this thing up. I wanted to get your parting thoughts on this before we start heading out, and also if you could preview kind of what the coverage tonight is going to look like from UGASports for people over there on the site.
I'm going to give the boring answer. I mean, whoever wins the line of scrimmage this ball game is going to, be the national champion. I mean, I really think that's the case. I mean, it's up to Georgia's defensive front, that front seven, Kobe Dean, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter. If they win their battles, one-on-one battles, I think Georgia wins this ball game. It really is simple as that to me. As far as coverage, man, we've got – I'm not even sure if I can even list all the things we have planned for this game, especially if Georgia, wins this thing. We're going to blow this thing up like folks have not seen on UGASports.com before.
Close the site and go home. Talk to everybody tomorrow.
Yeah, we're not, but let's just focus on the right now, though, and see if we can get Georgia, through this game and win a national championship. Then we worry about the other.
I do think it was interesting. Kirby Smart was asked about that, and he said, "Look, you can win in the trenches, but lose the game because of explosive plays." And it's funny, for all year long, the people who were, I don't say anti-Stetson, but maybe pro JT were like, "Look, explosive plays win games. Look at LSU. Look at Alabama. Look at these. Look at Clemson." And I think that you can control the line of scrimmage, but I think it's going to be imperative for Georgia to hit their explosive plays. You need that DeAndre Swift touchdown. You need that 80-yard James Cook touchdown that he
Jermaine
scored. You need Jermaine Burton. Brock Bowers doing his stuff. I think if somebody wants to chart the number of plus 20 plays and count any turnovers like a -3, but any plus 20-yard plays, let's see who has the most of those and how the game pans out.
Somebody on the vent, go ahead and start a thread. Plus 20 in turnovers, and we'll keep up with it after.
If you get a turnover, then that counts like 2 or 3 of them. And I'm not sure what the exact ratio is, but I'm with Dash. I think controlling the line of scrimmage controls who has the ball, who's on the field the most. That's going to be huge down the stretch. But I think I really want to know is who has the most explosive plays. And, could this be the game where you actually see the running game break off big chunks? Have we had a game like that this year?
I mean, really, in the Kentucky game, you see Zamir White was able to have like a 25, 30-yard touchdown run. And then in the Tennessee, James Cook had a big touchdown run. But those are really the two main ones that come to mind.
Even against some of the smaller teams, you just didn't feel that you were getting those chunk yard runs. And this might be a fun game to see that in. And it would be some cosmic justice there.
If Georgia could win the national championship running the football, I think there would be people that are literally in their graves right now that are Georgia fans that would get excited right there. So
that's old-fashioned football.
Yeah, the Mike Bobo would be forgiven. Everything would be.
But it's just interesting that it's Kirby seems to have a team here. Jed, on your file, you can wrap this up. But it seems to me that he has a team that wants to go run-oriented, strong defense, which feels old-fashioned. But then yesterday he's like, whoever has the most explosive plays wins. And I'm like, so I didn't understand the approach there. Jed, your final thoughts?
Yeah, shout out to Zach Strugan in the comments, longtime red and black colleague there. No, it's like you said, you can be run-oriented and also still have the explosive plays, right? Because how many explosive plays this year have come off the play action? Like, that's what Stetson Bennett likes to do. That's what, you talk about the run opening up the pass. The run doesn't open up the 5-yard slants, right? The run opens up the play action shots down the field to, the Brock Bowers over the middle, the George Pickens one-on-ones on the outside, stuff like that. So, that's the key. You get the run going, and, whether the run game is ripping off those 10, 12-yard chunks or not, it'll help free up those, those deeper shots down the field off play action.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered it kind of from every angle here to start off with. The game is, about 4.5 hours away, a little bit more, probably 5 with the national anthem and all that kind of stuff. But we're going to have all the pregame coverage here. Like I said, subscribe, like on the YouTube channel, head over to the site and to the event, and we will catch you guys after the national championship game for the post-game overreaction show on this channel. For Roddy, Jed, and Dash, I'm Blaine Gilmer, and we'll catch you later on this evening.